Welcome to QueerTWENTY, the cohort of 2020. QueerTWENTY is egomonk's annual flagship program where we celebrate exceptional queer Indians succeeding in different fields. This is the fourth year we are doing QueerTWENTY, and today we have a very driven individual with us, Swetha Harikrishnan. Swetha comes with more than a decade's experience in HR, and currently she manages all things HR at HackerEarth. Navigating the intersection of being a woman and a queer in essentially a male-dominated corporate world, we believe Shweta has some intriguing insights into how to navigate the current state of affairs while also building a new world. So without further ado, let's welcome Shweta. Shweta, thank you so much for joining us. So Shweta, for a lot of people, fashion is not just like a wardrobe choice, but an identity statement. And I think it's safe to
Right.
say that you fall in that category because your fashion style challenges the traditional gender norms and they incorporate both femme and butch slash masculine elements. Could you share
Right. Right.
as to how you have, like, how your experiences have shaped your fashion statements slash wardrobe choices?
For me, I think personally, it's been quite a journey, like a lot of other things in my life, a lot of unlearning and learning. And I think I've had various comments coming to me, whenever someone sees me. I think recently, the other day, I had a friend who told me, how can you look so queer while wearing such straight clothes? I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? I was very curious. I'm a very curious person. She said, yeah, you're wearing a really straight, flared skirt, which is so straight people type. And with a, nice fab India kind of top, a sleeveless one, which is, so your clothing choices are so straight, but you look so queer. How do you manage to pull that off? And I'm like, wow, that's a very interesting one. A few years ago, I think in HackerEarth, when I was, initial period when I joined, and someone said, I think when in conversation when it came out that I'm queer, and he said, "Yeah, figured because you button up fully button up your collar, right? And what you also do, I mean, you have a lot of tattoos, you have this little whatever you call a acting detail, whatever. So I think people tend to put multiple things together to form words, and I think constantly people are trying to put everyone, including me, and I had to unlearn it, right? Put people into boxes. So I think when I started early on from my childhood, I think I realized that because I was also into sports, so I could be tomboyish because I heard the word tomboyish coming to me. You're into sports, your clothing is comfortable, looks a certain way, but at that time you also wear skirts, so it's a little confusing. What's that going on? It's always been like that, like a mix. And I think, I think fusion, but this is not consciously that I've done. No? I think over a period of time, I've realized that I really enjoy, when it comes to clothing, a lot of fusion, even when it comes to Western, Indian, or masculine, feminine. I think different words put together. I think even my music taste and a lot of things in my life. Fusion is a word that really comes to me. Playful because I like seeing other people's reaction and comments coming my way. Like, then I want to do it more. I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I mean, I'm picking up clothes that makes me really comfortable. It's interesting, the kind of words that are coming to me. So I like playfulness, and you'll see that usually in my clothing also. Today, as we speak, I think it's gotten to a point, I tell a lot of people, like, I feel like I'm shedding my hair, I feel like shedding clothes, I'm shedding a lot of deep-rooted conditioning and all of that, right? And becoming very, very open. And I'm really grateful for that. But I think today, fashion for me is also very internal. So it really doesn't depend upon my clothing, but I've started relating my body very closely when you're asking me about fashion.
You have spoken about coming out to family, right? And the paths to, like, one, coming out to family, and two, like, acceptance is quite difficult in the setting we are in, right? But
and they
you
just
have
have to
spoken
take it. They just have to
about
accept
your
it. That's it.
mother's reaction and the journey further. Can you discuss like a pivotal moment where
Hmm.
like that marked the shift in your mom's perception, or like what is this journey
Right.
really till now?
I must say it kind of continues. It's taken different shapes and forms of acceptance and no acceptance, and very conveniently she going in and out. And I think so much better today, but I think it does kind of continue, I have to say. A pivotal moment is when I took my girlfriend back then, this was a few years ago, to my parents' home. And we actually spent the night there. We stayed over for about 2 days. And I was shocked when I saw a large spread for lunch, which she cooked. And I think it's not just about, like, I know how she treats my brother-in-law. I have a younger sister. My brother-in-law is there. So, when your, son-in-law, daughter, like they come home and you really put in effort to kind of cook some special things, have a large spread. And I was kind of shocked. They didn't tell me about, not my dad, but the way they treated her. Of course, it was very heterosexual in the sense of this, but then there was a huge amount of acceptance that
I
I
love this
felt. And oh
story.
my God, that felt really nice and special, because that I saw was she's accepted it, because she treated my girlfriend then, the way that she would have, or she was treating my brother-in-law into the family. And that really kind of meant a lot, because sometimes then you don't need words to kind of call it out. These actions speak a lot. And I know food is a great way
Sorry, can
to,
you repeat that?
have a conversation, to talk about that, isn't it? So sometimes when you can't use words, you use food, which is great. So I think that really meant a lot. I think, personally, I think today, she struggles with, I know that for my mom, she thinks it's common to be attracted to anyone or either gender. I think she doesn't think it's something that someone pursues for life. Yeah. So she understands that people can be attracted to both the genders. And I feel probably it's coming from, if she understands it, mostly it's because she has experienced it and felt it. 100%. I don't expect and that's where the understanding comes from, saying, sure, I understand that you can be attracted to both the sexes, but I'm not able to understand how you would pursue a woman for your companion, for the life like that, So that she doesn't understand. So even today, I think she struggles, but she accepts also. There's been moments of in and out when she questions. Yeah. And I think fast forward today, the main problem for her, not today per se, but it has been saying, why you're not really talking about this one person in your life and introducing them to your family formally. But that's because I think, going back to the
Okay.
point of, I don't know how to live my life not being genuine and authentic. I will only do that if I'm pursuing a relationship,
Yeah.
if it's that authentic, and I have the confidence to come and tell you and the other person to their family to kind of say, this is my person, I want you to meet them. I did that recently.
How do you kind of like continue to fight while also managing your own mental health and well-being?
Right. This is when I'm so glad we have this word called intersectionality to use today. Because, sometimes I've had this question also coming to me asking, oh, what have been your struggles of being a queer person? And my answer, first and foremost, response to that has always been, my struggle has not really been of being a queer person per se, because I think for the certain amount of invisibility that I experience in that space, generally around in the straight world per se. It's been more of being a woman. The struggles have been more of just being a woman, my entire life. And I think uh, even in the corporate world, I think starting from the day I started working, um, now when I think, look back at it, the words that I come in intimidation. When you start your career as a really young person, very new to the world and etc. and all of that. Now, of course, there is an intimidation related to aligned towards certain authority who's working with you like a manager, but there's also a very strong part of it being a man and then trying to mentor me as a woman. I felt all of that. I think probably the industry also I started with retail, extremely male dominated, toxic, right? And not nice male dominated, extremely toxic male dominated. Oh my God. Oof. And the amount of toxicity with that gender, man, I felt it was a lot. So I think overall throughout my career, and I think being a woman again, being a single woman, and then I think firstly, I think because of the lot of work that I've done in this space when it comes to diversity and then gender specifically, I think today I have examples very strongly to kind of call out a point that if you put a bunch of women and men in a room, you will mostly only see the men talking and you will only see their voice being heard. Unfortunately, it's a fact. When you separate the groups out, you have a lot of voice that you're hearing from the women. The minute you mix the groups, it just shuns. The men kind of take over. But it was a very interesting observation. But I think I felt that throughout in my career, and I've had to kind of consciously sit with it. And I think really focus on my work and the quality of work. And that so just focusing on work helped me maneuver through the other things. I think there was also a very strong element. I have to say that almost every place that I worked in, except HackerEarth, I have to say, wherein, because you're a woman and you're a single woman and that's how they see you, which also means you're open, you don't have boundaries, which means you're open to, and if you're also drinking and if you're very vocal about, I love whiskey. And they're like, oh my God, okay, she's open to partying. She loves music. She loves, she wears red lipstick. She's a woman. She's single, which means she's open to coming out with me. Boundaries can be blurred. Things like those, it's really unfortunate, but I think I've had to kind of face those elements of it and tackle with those elements of it throughout my career when I think of me being a woman, right? Now, or even let me kind of put that aside and say, even the tone. I think the tone, chauvinism, etc. comes out even at work. And I think you have to really sit down and think about, you come out of a specific situation and you know that something really didn't feel right. You have to sit with it. And I would say just today I can tell you, right? I think with some amount of practice and failing and then learning, I have to say. So write down about, listen, what was the situation? How did that make you feel? Put the words to those feelings. And then ask the question, do you want to do something about it? Yes or no? Can you do something? Do you have the energy to do something about it? Because I've also been in situations where I've burned. Like sometimes you don't have the emotional capacity and the energy to deal with it. Confronting a situation, such situations is very difficult to do. You can drain yourself out, right? So you really need to, and sometimes as women, I've seen this behavior where, and I think this is a strong pattern that I've observed working with women and being a woman myself, where I think most of us have this thing to do very fiercely to do the right thing. I must do the right thing. Actually, you must. Must is not the word. You can. You choose if you want to do the right thing. You don't have to do the right thing.
So Are
because
there
they're
any
like, if I
strategies
don't
that
listen and
you have
say,
used
okay,
as
I'll
an HR
apologize and I won't do
that
it,
have
whatever
actually
it is, right?
worked?
Then it will have
Like, could you
consequences
give us
because
like
it's not a
any
personal space.
example that as an
It's a
HR you
working
have
environment. There are
implemented
different
something,
other channels that
or
you, right. I think, the first and foremost, so there've been instances, and I think this is a thumb rule even, and especially being in the HR function, right, is that listening, I think number one is, you have to be seen as a person whom anyone can come and talk to. Right. And that's been, I think that these three things have always been my personal endeavor. And I think most of the people in HR, I think, right, that you have to be seen as approachable and someone not purely being guided only by process and sticking to process and a rule book. Then you don't need an HR based person. You put a bot behind it. It's as simple as that, So I think someone who is seen as genuinely needs to be that care element. I'm also saying it because there are a lot of HR people who are probably in the wrong job today. I've seen it, so that is number one. Number two, then what happens is people start talking to you, then you have to listen. And number three is you have to act on it. There are a lot of jokes that, float around, especially with HR people kind of saying that someone's spoken to someone and HR, there's a skeleton standing saying, yeah, I'll come back to you. It never happens, right? Basically, there's no action. There's a lot of memes and jokes that float around. But I think this is a thumb rule that's really worked. And I believe in doing very simple things, going back to basics. You don't have to do elaborate things. Of course, you can make process and tools help you with that, right? But these are three main things. And I think fast forward today. So a very strong a bias for action has really, really worked in addressing. You have to address these things. These are all behaviors predominantly that comes to us as HR people to address. Most of the time, beside the fact and what actually happened, is the how element of it that we need to take a charge of, the behavior part of it. Because behaviors, if not addressed very clearly, very head-on and transparently and in a very straightforward way, and addressed fully, these behaviors can very rapidly spread. Because if I see one person be a sexist, make a sexist joke. And if I don't, even as an HR person, I don't address it, and that encourages another person to also do the same because it's not being addressed. There are no consequences to it. Saying that I can casually joke about these things, perhaps in this environment, because probably it's not harming anyone. I'm not being questioned, etc. No. So behaviors can spread rapidly. So my thumb rule has always been to break it down into what and the how. The how are your behaviors. Immediately tackle the behavior. You have to act on it. Otherwise, you are failing. Of course, then the bigger words become culture and etc. and all of that, which gets impacted, becomes toxic and things like that. But my thumb rule has been on the how part of it. So today, because, and I know we're talking about gender, women, we're also talking about being queer.